Good morning, everyone. First of all, a warm welcome to all our panelists and the viewers for joining us. Our topic for today's webinar is People Analytics Transforming HR and Employer Performance Management. The nature of work has shifted and distributed workforces and now the norm. Leaders are challenged to maintain consistency in performance management, regardless of where their teams are located. Traditional approaches are ineffective and distributed as well as in office teams. And what was already a hassle in the office becomes even more complicated when performed remotely. The expansion of the use of the big data in human resource has been on the rise. People analytics is receiving attention since businesses are expected to do more with less in the talent area. With the right people analytics tools, businesses can make a more intelligent decisions and better understand their employees. In 2023, automation will also be at the forefront of HR operations. Chatbots, streamlined workflows, artificial intelligence, automated onboarding processes, and instant manager approvals will facilitate everyone's lives. While in the past, traditional methods were used to assess employee engagement and performance, in the new world of work, HR analytics and its tools are used not only to recruit and hire the workforce, but also to measure the performance of the employees. With this, let me just take this opportunity to introduce our speakers for today's webinar. Our first speaker for the day is Mr. Eshwar Subramanyam. Mr. Eshwar has more than 2 decades of work experience in HR with diverse skills such as talent management, recruitment, leadership development, etc. Having worked with many diverse businesses, he is now associated with ITW Chemin and heading the HR function of the company. So welcome, Mr. Eshwar.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity and welcome all.
Thank you. And next is Ms. Chaitali Mukherjee. Ms. Chaitali has more than 2 decades of work experience in the area of corporate HR. She has worked with Ultratech Cement and is now associated with Dalmia Bharat Group, leading the HR operations and heads training and development, performance management, employee engagement, and change management. Welcome, Ms. Chaitali. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. It's great to be a part of the panel and look forward to hear from everybody. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And last but not least, let's welcome our third speaker, Mr. Sunny Narang. Mr. Sunny has been associated with Zydex Industries Private Limited for the past 6 years and heading the company's HR function. He has over 18 years of work experience in HR with firms such as Sarabhai, Muthoot Finance, Claris Life Sciences, and Atul Limited. So welcome, Mr. Sunny. Thanks once again, all 3 of you, for joining the call, joining the session. And so let's start with our first question. This is for Eshwar, for you. Would like to know your views on how has the performance management process has changed over the years? And secondly, has the majority of the organization adopted this change at the optimum pace? Views, please.
I think as HR has matured, the process of performance management also has matured. Okay, right from setting of goals, which were initially more subjective in nature, they have now become very concrete and very measurable and very closely aligned with what the business is wanting to achieve in any current year. So it has also undergone a lot of change. So if I take per se ITW, our 50% of the weightage goes towards the business objectives and the remaining 50 goes to how those objectives have been achieved. So it's both the what and the how that have been achieved. Sometimes what can be achieved, but the process of how you have achieved that at times could be a question mark also. So we need to move both in a tandem. So the subjectivity of the value, subjectivity of how you have achieved the numbers remain. At the same time, what I have seen is what you are going to achieve is stemming out from what the organization itself has set itself to achieve in the current year. Okay, whether it's revenue, whether it's bottom line, whether it is variable margin, whether it is adding of new customers, whether it is adding more elephants into your kitty, it all stems from organization strategy. You want to expand geographically, you want to actually be a market leader, whatever is decided, the goals actually percolate from there down the line. So you will see if you are lucky to pick a performance appraisal form of the 80s, 90s, and every decade, and provided you are in the same company, you will see that change which has actually come. The number of pages has invariably come down, but the quality of it, the goals have actually improved like anything. That's been my observation.
So, Mr. Sunny, like to add?
Yeah, probably I echo the same what Eshwar said. Probably in 1980s or 90s, we had more of pen and pencil concept, where the manager would define the objectives and the employee has to achieve that, and the appraisals would done at the end of the year. And it was more on the emotional interest of the employer and the employee. That's it. No concrete way of doing an appraisal system, to be honest. India, as especially, was known as the land of snake charmers, that long back. So their job was mainly into making people happy about it. So what happened? I'll tell you the psychology of. I've learned a little bit of that also in my career experience. I said that when you were born in India, probably your parents say that iske saath bura mat karna, aisa kharab mat karna. Always respect your people who are elder than you. Always keep them happy. Now, when the same guy becomes the manager, he remembers all of these. And when he tries to appraise someone or evaluate someone during 1980s and 20s, he generally thinks of those values first, saying that I cannot diss people, I cannot be so harmful to people that way. And then the appraisal goes for a toss, and it is more about, I'll tell you, rotation policy that I've seen in many of the companies I have worked, where 1 year I give it to someone, the second year I give it to someone, the third year I give it to someone. From there, from 2000 to 2020 now, there has been a change. Probably it is more with the HR has also become the strategic partner in making decisions for the company, where these people, analytics or tools, or you say anything about specific about decision, that's where HR is now a part of giving an input or giving an idea to a management, what they come from and where they come from. Because at the end of the day, it's the HR department who deals with the shop floor worker. It deals with the soldiers who are sitting at the front, who are actually fighting the job of getting sales and giving you the revenue. It's the HR who does that. So now people have realized that appraisal the HR has to take that lead role of getting into strategy, not the transactional one. They have to move out from there and get into the strategy part of it. So from the land of snake charmers to where we are today, where there are a lot of applications and softwares and other data that are coming out of the software. But to be honest with you, systems are just enablers. It's the manager who has to take that data into account and push it to the fact that they take care of this entirely. HR or the management cannot do anything on their own. It's these managers who take this data out of the system and work for that. I'll give you a wonderful example of an appraisal system, which probably Eshwar said. Our management wanted a particular speech to text, what do you say, an app or something where the manager can speak it out and it will all written on the performance feedbacks, comment box. So we went on to that fact that, we built up that, we worked on that, and it actually saved a lot of time for the managers, where they started recording, and it was all there on the records for them to give it to the employees for, probably for their assessment and all, for the evaluation. So this is where we have seen from pen and paper. When I did my first job in Sarah, it was more of pen and paper. And now where I'm doing all those things, or where you would have seen people doing it in the systems, where it is more backed by data. Today, I cannot talk without logic, to be honest. I cannot just favor people and say that, you will get this and you will get that. No, it is on the logic and it's on the data that people want to know. And today, with the workforce dynamic that have changed, where you have Gen Zs and Alpha generation to be coming in, they don't go by these emotions. They look at how you're going to take care of me and how you're going to make sure that I am not the one who is fitting into the role just because you want it. It's something that I also should believe that I'm also important to the company and I'm also fitting rightly into that role. Yeah. So that is what has changed for us, probably from the appraisals that we did. And now we are doing it for the people that are very different from what it was today, from yesterday.
I think 2-3 points which really touch upon, even Eshwar, he touched upon. I think it's not about how the objectives to be achieved. And so it's not about achieving the objectives, basically how the objectives can be achieved. So HR role has changed over a period of time. You also mentioned about the rotation policy. I think this has been there since, but I think a lot of data-driven, decisions have been taken today. Another point I think we really like, I think which touched upon, the HR is becoming a strategic partner. I remember the days when it's more like a generalist profile, HR generalist and all. So HR is more related to recruitment or appraisal. But today they are a strategic partner. They play a much wider role what they were playing, I think, 10 to 80 years back. And I totally agree. I think what you mentioned, the change in the dynamic of workforce, I think that is something very critical. The way the people are thinking, the way the people have to manage is very different the way we were managing earlier, right? So your views, Chaitali, on this?
See, adding up to what Sunny and Eshwar said, my only the change which I find is the feedback mechanisms, the process, the the appraisal process, as we say, the performance management process that we talk of, has become clearer, and HR plays a lead role in facilitating the entire process. So earlier it was key increment chahiye ya promotion dena hai, and that's what the appraisal is all about. But now we know that it is beyond that. So HR has been facilitating this PMS as a process in which there is a self-evaluation, there is a manager's evaluation backed by a performance feedback, where the manager has to clearly say what has gone well, what needs to go well in future. There is also a career development discussions which we facilitate, and that is that's what a appraisee looks forward to at the end of the year, or maybe wherever there is a mid-year appraisals at the middle of the year, where the corrective courses of actions can be taken. So we also are appraisees at some point of time as an HR, and we understand the importance of getting a feedback from the manager that what I have done well, what is the way ahead for me, what are the things I need to do. So maybe for me, adding to what the other member said, that the feedback process has become more clearer. The data plays definitely an important part, where now you cannot just talk on perceptions. You have to give your observations. Data-based feedback has to be given, and you cannot just say that you have done a good job or you have not done a good job. So you have to back it by data, and you have to give a proper feedback, and then the rest things will follow. Now the normalization process, people understand very well that with the bell curves that we follow. So people now have, in fact, the work of the HR has been very, very important in establishing that normalization process. Now we are able to, the managers used to put the blame on HR ki maine to high rating diya tha, but HR ne kam kar diya. But now I think people are more educated, and I think this job has been done by HR, of educating the entire process to the people, telling that there is a normalization process involved in the organization, where it is not HR who takes the decisions, it's your manager takes the decision, the functional leaders takes a decision based on the relative performance. So I think the process has become more clearer, and HR has been able to facilitate this process well to the the normal employees of the organizations. That is a point of view.
So I think one point, the feedback thing which touched upon, I think more into 360-degree appraisal, we've been talking about
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
So it's very important, rather than just giving a rating, and the feedback plays a very important role. So another thing, anyways, we discussed about the change which has happened. So you think the organization are open now to adapt to this change with the pace which is required, or still, I think, feel there's a disconnect on the ground?
No, we need that, Sumit. I think we have to come far more closer to the business realities. Of course, the soft side will still remain, that we were there. See, in all the issues that we spoke about, the common element still remains is the human element. Okay, you can digitize what Sunny was talking about, but in the end, it's the manager who is actually speaking out. Okay, he is actually voicing his views, his thought process on entire thing, which is getting recorded. Earlier, the same thing used, and with virtual platform coming, what's actually happening is the human emotion is sometimes getting hidden. If I am talking to you sitting in front of you, perhaps we will bring a different perspective to that entire discussion. In virtual, what happens is I have to really read Sumit's eyes as to what has he expressed any concern. or I have to be an expert in understanding the facial moves to understand that, okay, is he conveying something? Is he restless? What is it that? They all get clouded in a digital kind of a thing. I have a piece of paper and a person sitting in front of me for 10 minutes. So we have to address this challenge also. We have seen this move. COVID brought us get to virtual, and virtual appraisals one full year we had. I'm sure emotions were not to be not captured. Yes, there are certain advantages. In a virtual thing, I can give and point blank feedback. I can tell Sumit, this is what I didn't like, this is what exactly it is. But maybe when you're sitting in, I have to moderate it in such a way that I have to articulate it in such a way, and I have to tell you a context where you find that, oh, he is giving a feedback to me only. But virtual is not like that. You will shut off the computer, I'll shut off my computer, and that's it. But then I have given the feedback. So technology is also helping in some areas. At the same time, we have to find out ways of how that gap will be addressed. I loved what Sunny said, that, a manager speaks out his mind and it gets recorded. He need not worry about what word to use, what word not to use. Okay. And by using a particular word, am I actually hurting a person? So it will aid us in many ways. Technology will aid us. I will be able to pinpoint the problem, what I'm trying to communicate. So I see the advantages in that way, Sunny.
And I totally agree. I think it's not about what you communicate, how you communicate also makes a lot of difference. And obviously, when we talk about HR or anything, I think whether it is AI or whatever comes into picture, I think you cannot avoid or ignore the human element. I think the human touch which is required. I think that emotional intelligence to deal with the humans really require. I think I really agree on that part. Sunny, you want to add something, I believe, yeah.
See, one of the toughest decisions that HR has to take today was asking people to go. That was one of the toughest, I'll tell you. But there's another toughest decision that they have to make it when they have 10 people or 12 people, more than 10. Then the decision to give how much an increment to one of two of three of them, that is one of the toughest decisions that people take today. And after that, the repercussion of what you gave, that comes back to you. Maybe not form of an abusement, but it comes as a form of less performance or lack of initiative or demotivated employee. That is one of the most important challenges that we face. And rightly said by Eshwar, it is not the communication that you do, that is how you do. That's the first base of a communication chapter that we did. It's not what you communicate, it's how do you do that. Now, when just add on to what I only told it, when we did this, probably of recording the entire speech, the human element, or what you say, the emotion part of it went away. Because manager got an opportunity just to record it and put it on the system, and it gets flashed in the employees login. And the employee said there is no appraisal dialogue that happened. It is all there in the system. And that's why we realize that this works. But there has to be something also where they go on one-on-one with people to make them understand why has this been mentioned, and also fully data-driven. Though you can add efforts. See, for example, during our school, when we used to write our maths problems, the teacher would give you marks for these steps also. They would never look at the end result. It's the steps also that we count. Now, when we go by data, we saw that managers were a little cruel, saying that, okay, the target versus achievement is this and you get this much. But when it is an emerging market, when there is some market conditions going wrong, when there are government policies changing, when the efforts are already there, when would you look at that also? So then managers started looking at that, probably giving 10, 15 marks extra or 20 marks extra or a percentage extra because of the efforts that they had put in. So these are a day in challenge that we face. And then we feel that, okay, technology is going to take over and there are a lot of analytics and tools coming in. But the real problem comes when the manager stops interacting with them, or when it becomes too much of, technological driven, transactions, where people start feeling that, okay, it is more of saying hi, hello, and that's it. And then the entire feedback is given through system. So rightly said that the human element is also required. We cannot just keep away from that. That's one of the most important challenges that we are facing.
Great. So I'll go to Chaitali now. Chaitali, as per you, what are the pros and cons of this real-time back data performance management against what we've been doing in the traditional way of, the cyclic appraisals which were there?
Yes. So I think whenever we are talking of HR analytics or people analytics, so see, when we are, so I have been very closely working, have supported sales as a line function. So if you see that when sales analyzes their customer data, So you would see that how so many cuts are there for analyzing a customer data, right? But when we as a HR, when we are we need to maybe understand our employee data similarly as we understand our customer data. So now when we are talking of performance appraisals for through people analytics, so basically we are saying that we will have to collect all employee data and then use it in the performance appraisal or performance monitoring mechanism. So if I'm trying to say that how I mean, suppose if I'm talking of the normal scenario in a corporate or a manufacturing sector, so that fair performance evaluation and appraisal, this is the process which is a key to the happier workforce and leads to a better business outcomes. So traditionally, all this time we have been using the bell curve and the mechanisms, but now we are trying to use analytics, HR analytics for appraisal process. So for me, there are 3-4 things which are majorly which may contribute to the appraisal process, the HR analytics. First is the predictive analysis, which I can talk of. So it is basically to identify the various patterns of both individual performance and the team level performance. So what has been the performance drivers, and so some predictive analysis is possible with the HR analytics. Engagement, HRs can identify engagement activities that can directly impact the employee performance. So this is another thing. Then there could be using HR analytics, the appraisal and performance evaluation can be a source of succession planning. It can anticipate promotions, transfers, the potential employees could be identified. Then the better feedback, as we discussed, that feedback, we can give a better feedback because analytics would help employees drive most of the feedback because it is data backed up. Performance feedback will be constructive and it will be impacting the employees. So now when we are talking of these pointers, at any point of time, I am finding that the data is always helping the managers to segregate, maybe classify, or maybe say in the talent management process, we can say that we are trying to classify between high performers, mid performers, low performers. We are trying to reward them fairly accordingly, and we are trying to take care of the people, high performers, give them fair rewards so that they stay with the organization. So that is a continuous process. So data is giving a backup for all these things. But as you said, that it is definitely aiding, because the data is aiding the HR to take more informed decisions, more objective decisions. But on the other hand, we already discussed that you cannot remove the human from the human resources. So data cannot be the sole basis of taking decisions, right? So there has to be the human element, there has to be the people aspect to it, where the managers have to take a clear understanding of the job done, the clear efforts put in, the initiatives shown by the employees, what is the way forward, all those career discussions, development discussions. So all this has to be done by the human part of it. So data helps us understand what makes the candidates truly successful, but human beings still make the final decisions. So we have to thank the data because they make us make better decisions. So that is what I wanted to put forward.
I think a very important point, Chaitali, thanks. You've touched upon this predictive analysis. I think when you talk about the 4 levels of HR analytics, which is descriptive, diagnostic, prescriptive, and predictive one. Basically, I think that really helps when you have to work. And there's some best practice which we normally follow as an HR. I think another part which obviously we've been talking about the human element. I think that we should not miss when we're talking about. I think there are other factors which also come into picture, like when we talk about the data and all. I think that quality of data and the way the data is getting interpreted, I think also plays an important role, because people need to have that understanding or expertise in interpreting that data properly. And obviously there's some privacy and ethical concerns also, because today people try to get data from anywhere, when they talk about employee. I see from social media they try to just have some checks and all. I think they have to be little that thin line which is there. So your thought, Eshwar, on that part, and then I'll come to Sunny also so that he can share his views on that.
No, I just love that conversation. And if I have to put it in, I'll put it in 2 aspects. I think every movement of an employee in an organization is generating some or the other kind of a data. Okay. Have I, right from the gate, how many times have I punched exactly at 8:15 is a data. Now it's useful, not useful, secondary. How many times I have used my occupational health center? How many times I have availed facilities which are available or provided by the organization? So you can go on and on and on. So it's so much of data. But then the question is, what is the data which is relevant for the business, which is relevant for the person? It's that what is actually required. Now, when you said real time is now. Okay, now when that action has happened versus once upon a time I did a great job. Okay, in a period of 12 months, I might have done wonderful job. If I'm a sales guy, I would have brought a very big account for you. But then there could have been some slippages in the subsequent months. So you go by a recency effect, and that good job, I will miss. Now, if you are recording it real time, just as the way you record expenses, you are recording the performance also real time. The question is, are you also rewarding real time now rather than wait for a period of 12 months? Now, this is where technology is actually helping. And when you are recording it real time, after 12 months, you are able to actually visualize that, okay, in a period of 12 months, there were so many excellent jobs that were actually done. And at the same time, there were certain areas where an employee was found wanting. And in the year end, when you are actually sitting with the document and trying to give a feedback, you have both the good which was done, and there are areas which were pointed out that one has to focus or one has to improve on. That's where technology is actually helping in improving, so that the employee also feels objective. What all good I have done has been appreciated by manager. At the same time, he has also said, I might have missed a couple of things and they were really 80. I mean, they were the most important thing which I missed, actually, despite all those good that I'm feeling. In absence of real-time recording, what happens is recency effects comes into play. In the month of December, I did an amazing job, so I am the star for the entire year. And then suddenly, but remember, other employees, they do know. They keep a track of all employees 12 months and not that month of December. And then when you are trying to reward this person, then you find that, it's a challenge. At the same time, even if I have done an amazing job in December, you still haven't given me that kind of a credit. People will appreciate that your process is objective. That is, they did consider the slippages, whether Eshwar or anybody would have done in the previous months, and they have not gone by a recency effect. Now, this is again pretty important to understand. So if performance is recorded real time, the good and the bad gets recorded. And at the year end, you have both talk. End of the day, as we said, we have been repeating it. It's human. It's human. It's quite human to forget. It's quite human to miss. It's quite human to actually, not deliberately, I would say, ignore some of the aspects. But when it's getting recorded real time, you are building up data. You are building up a data of it. That's the third point which I would like to add is why I compare. We are seeing portability of numbers. I can take an Airtel number and die with Airtel number. But in my 30 years of career in private sector, I would say in private sector, we don't have portability of performance appraisal. If I was reporting to Sunny in Vedanta, I don't know. I mean, nobody will know what he marked as a comment. Okay. And if I was reporting in TeamLease to Sumit, again, those comments will be very different. So it varies. We don't have that portability. Even when we interview, we don't know. We only see a hard copy of a biodata, which tells only the good part of it. But maybe Sunny has pointed out that Eshwar is found wanting in A, B, C, but he is outstanding in D, E, F. It's not recorded. So I will also tell only D, E, F, and I will not tell that A, B, C where he pointed out. That portability is only there in government. So we need to find some kind of a technology which helps me carry this appraisal process also. That's where you will see a real learning. In my initial period of career, what was my manager telling? In my mid-career, what was my manager pointing out? And now when I have reached a particular stage, what's my manager actually telling it? Have I improved? We don't see technology bridging that. Technology is helping in record today. Today, if I have done good, today I have been taken care. In government, they may not have digitized, but the annual confidential record that have, it carries the period from right from day one they join, and they have it. And they see how the progress is actually made. So we have a huge amount of scope for technology to aid in this performance management system. Okay, I'm sure some kind of a beginning will be made somewhere, but my reading is technology is real time. Real time is now. And this gets recorded, it makes the life easy for the manager to give an objective feedback, not getting carried by, I repeat, the recency effects.
Thanks. Thanks. I think very good point you mentioned about this portability of performance. I think very interesting one. So we talk about portability of numbers and all. So I think it's a great point, and that reminds me, though we talk about the real-time data today, or after when we do the appraisal after 1 year and or even annual appraisal when we're doing it, most of the time we forget what has happened in the initial days. And there was something called incident diary, which normally HR people initially, any good incident which is happening, let's make a note of it. So by that time, the year is over, at least we know what people have done when we are reviewing those people. Apart from the general data what we were having in terms of the targets, achievement, there were other achievements also. And normally HR or maybe the managers used to capture that details in the incident diary, so-called incident diary, which now anyways we are going on a real-time data, but that really helps. So yes, and your views, like to add anything on this?
Yeah, I think wonderfully said about portability. I also like that idea. Where the UN numbers are now portable to other companies, why not this? This is more important. But yes, people have moved on from general recruitments to checking people on social media also how they behave there, because that also gives them an insight of what's happening around. So that data also comes in from social media. Now, I wanted to say one thing. When I did a small session with one of my teams here at Zydex, I asked them specifically, very importantly, I asked, what's the problem that you feel in Zydex? They said, यहाँ पे increment नहीं मिलता है. That's a common thing that you will listen to. Every company you go, you'll have people there saying that, sir, increment कम मिलता है. We really did a 5i. We did this problem solving tool 5i, and I went on to sit with them and ask them, can you do a why of why you're not getting that increment? He says, manager ऐसा करते हैं. Then we went on to 5. The last why said that I have not upgraded myself in a way that I should get an increment based on my last year's work, where I did not upgrade. And I am expecting the same thing because I did not do anything in my own self from the previous to previous years. And I want an increment for the work only I did. No enrichment, no enlargement, no job evaluation. So there we realized it's the data that talks about how it happened, what is happening in your life. Then we realize it is not that managers or the company is not giving you a raise. It's that you have not put in anything in your own self as a development. What my manager, one of my mentor told me, every year add 1 degree if possible. If you cannot add a degree, add 1 diploma course. If you cannot add a diploma, do a training program or get into a training program. If you even cannot get a training program, read a book or meet people so that they can exchange certain information that can get into your own head so that you can change your mindset. If you're not doing anything this way, if you're really not doing this one in a year, you're not upgrading yourself. And that is where it actually touched me and hit me that way, that even if I'm not doing a diploma, I'm still reading a book, I'm still conducting a session, or I'm listening to someone who's more wiser than me, or people, if there are interaction, someone will give me something out of it. So that's where we realize it's the data, but who is ready to do that? Now, it all depends on the individuals and the managers to upgrade them, tell them, and involve them into a process where they feel comfortable and start talking about their own development. And that is where data will help them. And that is where we also thought that data would definitely help them in getting into where they want to be. But because there was a lack of understanding of what to do and eventually blame the company of not giving increments, it's there where you should put effort on. And then when people started doing it, they would definitely, if Zydex cannot give you, someone else will give you, but someone will give you based on whatever you have done in your own development. And this is where it came out for us, that start working on your own self. That will help you to do. Now, this was all data driven.
I think one very important point, Sunny, you mentioned regarding this learning part, one degree or diploma or upgrading. I think very useful reason being because the way the dynamics have changed, especially after the digitalization and technology when it's coming into picture. I think people say the jobs will get reduced and all, but I think the jobs, the more options are, more opportunities coming. The only thing is a different skill set which is required. And this is where I think the upgradation or the upgrading skills and all comes into picture. And obviously, we normally say as an HR, when the learning stops, you are done. So we need to continue that part. Just like to add, we are discussing about the performance, like how the people and I think some articles which I was reading. I think though we normally they talk about the future of HR is here, about people analytics, all about the future. And there's an interesting one, though we discussed the performance, another thing is using people analytics to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Now, this article basically talks about how the people analytics can help HR department identify and addresses biases in recruitment and performance management practices, leading to a more diverse and inclusive workplace. So one data, but how in a different way we can use, I think that is more important, and that's really important because today we talk about diversity and all. We all are discussing. This is a trending topic. We all discuss on those things. So I'll just touch upon this part. So let me move to the next question, Sunny. So I'll start with you now. So we've been discussing about this, 40 hours a week or 4 days working. And you think the way how the people analytics can be used effectively to track this and manage employee productivity when we talk about 40 hours per week or 4 days of working. Number of discussions are happening on these lines. Just thought to have your views also on this, because anyways here also the data plays a lot of as a very important role. People analytics. So what's your views on that?
See, agreed. As you look at the environment outside today, everyone wants 4 days off in a month. That is your exclusive Saturdays also. So that's where people do look at it. And as an HR or as a management, I also have to look at what is the productivity that comes out of it at the end of the day. You can have systems. I have check-ins. I have all those mechanisms where I can tell people to put a report at the end of the day, what you did for 10 hours or what you did for 9 hours. I know that will happen. And people are also. But one thing which I have learned from the entire process of keeping Saturdays off, for example, 40 hours a day, I've learned that if you pressurize them or if you tell them that for whole 10 hours you have to work, they'll never work. It's the trust that you have to build in the team, or the management has to trust people out there that when you do something for them, they will reciprocate. But only and only when you don't put pressure onto it. I know there are a lot of productivity tools that we have. If I tell you about what we have done with our performance management is monthly reviews, quarterly reviews for certain. There are checkings which we have used. There are people analytics that we have used. There are predictive analysis that we are coming up with. There are SLAs being written for all the departments so that they can work. All these are there. But at the end of the day, do you trust your employees that they will work for 10 hours a day? It's sometimes become difficult. But if you really focus on building that camaraderie or building that cohesiveness within the team, saying that, okay, I will not do a micromanagement of what you're doing. I still have systems with me, but can I trust you? And if they say yes, and if they agree to all of this, you don't have to look at what 40 hours and what 30 hours. I have certain people in my own team who even works after 9 o'clock in the evening, just because they don't look at work timings, just because they look at it. Is the manager good enough to tell me that, or maybe the culture is that way that, no one has to tell how many hours you're working. It's the build of trust, the element of trust that we have built in the team that makes us to say that very confidently. You keep it 30 hours a week, it'll never matter. But is the culture or is the trust factor there in the team to ensure that these things are possible? And yes, it'll be possible. With all the systems, as I said, these are all enablers. They'll never take a decision. It's the you who has to take a decision. And when you take a decision, it is not the data. It also has to be an element where you bring in the trust within the team, which will help you to take a cohesive or maybe a unanimous decision on an agreed decision where everybody would agree to it. And that is where it comes into picture. Where I feel is why 40 hours? It's always the trust that works. A person can open up his laptop, do nothing for 10 hours. You cannot do anything with that. It's just that you have to trust them that they're doing and build a culture in which there is an openness and there is a transparency of what they're doing. That's what we have generally done, and that's what we have seen in the teams how they work today.
So the trust point is very important. And other thing, I think, like one thing we normally link when we talk about 4 hours or 4 working days or 5 working days, basically the striking the balance between work and life. But I think striking the balance with work and between work and life, plus ensuring we have the right productivity, from those, like you also touched upon it, whether it's 10 hours, 8 hours, and how they're delivering, I think that matters rather than just sitting idle or the productivity is not there. So, Chaitali, you would like to add anything from your end?
Yeah, Sumit, see, when we are talking of this 4 days, 5 days thing, see, just go back a year or two when we were in pandemic situation. How was the scenario like? Right. So we were working from home, and the entire so it was 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever with the hours, we were not bothered, right? We were working, and people used to call up even at 9 o'clock in the night, and they thought that it was quite normal to call up and kya kar rahe ho, ghar pe hi to ho, so sort of a thing. So ours actually agree to an extent with what Sunny said, is that of course we all work throughout the week, throughout the month, and but end of the day, the accountability of the job is ours. So when that accountability is built in, the employees of the organization, and there is an ownership of my work that I need to deliver. So my deliverables matters the most, right? So flexi hours and all these concepts are there. Now there's a hybrid working model which has come in now post COVID. So so few days you are coming to the office, few days you are not. So there are flexi hours. People come at their own time and all these things. So I think the scenario is completely changing. So there's 4 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours. Even if you don't want to, so if you have work to do, you can even be at home and deliver, right? And you can, and if so, the main point is like that you have to get this feeling of accountability, or the feeling of ownership developed, where the employee feels that this is my job, this is my KRAs, or this is what I need to deliver. These are the timelines, and I need to honor that. So hardly matters whether we are working 4 days, 3 days, 5 days, entire 7 days. So as an HR professional also, you will see that now for, say, I'll give you an example of example of my own organization. See, we have a 5 days a week, right? So Saturdays and Sundays we are off. But for my sales team, they have their reviews on Saturdays. But that's a normal. So 5 days a week, the boys know that it's a 5 days a week. So, but the reviews, all these unit reviews are on Saturdays. Sometimes we are also needed to come and do all this. So, and if you see, you would get calls for the salespeople. They even work on Sundays. So the point which I'm trying to make is that so even once we say that 4 days of work, so is it that we will totally remain cut off from our work for the next 2-3 days and then come back on Monday? So that demarcation is not possible at this, I would say, at this time. So nowadays we are available. Even people call up at 9 o'clock, ye data chahiye, ye chahiye, wo chahiye. So all those things are there. So for me, seems so you feel nice to hear about 4 days, 5 days, but then you are available. You are at a particular. So if somebody is as a clerical role needs to do something, and 9 to 5 job, that's a different thing altogether. But as you are working for the organization, you have certain deliverables, you have certain accountabilities. So for me, so 4 days is just we are trying to put that through, but does not really matter for the people who are wanting to work. And the millennials, as we said, that now the Gen Z and all, so they want that weekends off, and they want to chill out and enjoy. But end of the day, they're equally responsible for their own deliverables. So we will have to have a balance between that as we go ahead.
So end of the day, productivity matters.
Exactly.
Great. So before I move on to the next question, as I like to just share one of the article again related to the people analytics, how people analytics revolutionizing the employee retention. Now, this article basically is from Harvard Business Review, just come in Feb only. So this article explores how people analytics is helping companies to identify and address factors that contribute to high employee turnover rates, such as poor management of or lack of growth opportunity. I know, because before, why I said this thing before I move to next topic, but my next topic is more related to the retention and the attrition part, and which is again, very related, important topic from the HR perspective. So, Eshwar, this is for you. Basically, can people analytics help organization fight attrition and retention of employees? And what, according to you, are the challenges of depending on data?
It's a fantastic thing, basically, because you come to no other reason. If we look at attrition per se, every person who leaves has a unique reason, and every reason is unique in itself. And if we are able to collate this kind of a data, you will know whether it's the work environment, it's the manager, it's the workload, it's the distance from which he has to commute. Is it the lack of growth avenues? Is it engagement challenges? Is it reward and recognition? What's the reason for? In the end of it, Sumit, whether I join your firm or you join my firm, we both have to work. So work remains common. And I may be dealing with one human being here, I'll be dealing with another human being there. So I always keep telling that if you are planning to bring a revolution in the next planet, why don't you bring that revolution here? Why don't you talk about it here, that we can change the things? And the day HR is able to know more about the things when a person has submitted his resignation in an A4 paper. Now it's email, not even A4 paper. Okay, then we start rattling story after story after story after story that, these are the reasons. But the question is, can we create an ambience where I am able to tell, look, this is what is actually hurting me. This is the reason, because the resignation is the last, output we see. The seed was sown somewhere a year back, 6 months back. It could be the way you spoke to me has hurt. It could be I decided that this is not the place where, where my self-respect is not, or self-esteem is not taken care. So no one reason is common for all. Although everybody tells I'm going for better opportunity, that is a common. That is definitely a common. Career growth, common opportunity, learning curve, all that are fine. But if you dig deep, the reasons of reaching to this stage of I decide to quit is completely different. Because the same guy was excited to join this and he posted in social media, I am joining this organization, blah, 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 so many likes, so many comments and all. What happened suddenly? In between the two posts, something has happened. Can analytics really capture that? Again, I'll tell, analytics is only a tool. There is a human behind it. It could be the trigger could be as simple as, respect, inclusion. And if I perceive that I'm not being included in many of the initiatives, the trigger can start there. My work could be very interesting. My work could be very challenging, but then it's not just work. You could be disappointed with some other reason. I could be disappointed with some other reason. Likewise, but then where do we collect all these things? You look at any exit into form, most of them have better opportunity. And what's that better opportunity? Why can't you find a better opportunity in this very place? When did you talk to your manager that I want a better opportunity here? I am doing this. No organization will say no. If any employee comes and tells, I'm looking for an alternate. I have been doing the same kind of job for 5 years. I would love to do it different. No organization, let me tell you, will say no to it. They will definitely explore. They will not tell from now onwards you go there. No, they will explore definitely. But all this is after it has happened. And what happens even in HR, when you have already decided to move, Sumit, fair enough. Okay, I'll note it somewhere and I'll work on it. But had I known it 4 months back, had I taken a corrective action, Perhaps it would have yielded a different results. We would have been talking something different. So analytics will help. Again, what analytics to focus on, what analytics to look at it. I've in the last 15 years in this organization, I'm sure people have come, people have gone, we have spoken to all. Most of the time, even I have left 5 organizations using the same reason as telling better opportunity or, at best proximity to home, moving to hometown. This could be the reason. But then the data is very important. How do you collect the data? And when are you collecting the data? Are you collecting the data after an instance has happened? Then it's just a postmortem. At what stages are you collecting? The 3rd month of his joining, the 6th month, the 9th month, 1.5 years, 2 years, you are collecting, then you can find a pattern that he has been telling about this instance, not just now, but I think at the first interaction, second interaction, third interaction, and when nothing has happened, I mean, fair enough. It's quite acceptable that either the project or anything, but he has been telling it. But at what stage are we capturing it? And how is the organization using it? Any action taken post facto, the person has designed is only a postmortem. You may succeed in some of the times, quite possible. Okay. But in most of the times, it just gets recorded. Okay. That's where these analytics will definitely help. And they definitely start conveying the restlessness, Sumit, at some point of time. It's just how our antennas are open to capture that and act on it or take a proactive, corrective actions that will stem this. So I definitely see what kind of data definitely helps. Invariably, it helps. But more than data, the actions that you have taken. And is there a declining trend in that? That will be much more important.
I totally agree. I think rightly pointed out that part, because it's not about, like some of the reasons you mentioned, better opportunity and career growth and all those things. And it's like, are you able to read the pulse when the person started thinking, like he wants to leave? Now, it can be based on some experience, some incident which has happened, not related only performance. I think that really matters because, rightly said, afterwards, maybe you're able to retain some people, but rest is all post-mortem or a data management activity, frankly. So, Sunny, Chaitali, anything you like to add on this particular part before we move to the some questions from the audience which has come?
So I think Eshwar said it all, but maybe stay interviews are something which we have started doing in our organizations. That is helping us a lot, giving some insights from the people who are wanting to stay back. Then there are the data which Eshwar said that intermittently, if we are connecting with our people. So there is a new joiner connect, then there is a before the probation, there is a connect, then maybe after a year connect. So there are manager assimilation programs. So the number of times we are connecting with our people and getting to know their inputs actually makes the difference. That's what I feel. So I feel happy that with some initiatives, the attrition levels, the percentages have come down because ours is a sales organization. So we had a very high rate of interest last year, around 30-35%, which has come down by say 5-6% this year. And I think according to me, definitely the compensation and other benefits do have an important role to play. But I think the working on the exit pointers, right, whatever is coming, which is a postmortem, and of course, just to take care of the stay interviews and the connects with the people which we make and which throws us information. Then there are initiatives which the organizations takes. In fact, our organization, which is Organization Health Study. So there are certain customer satisfaction surveys, health studies which done. So it throws out pointers that what is the pain areas of the people in the organization. And then there are various cuts which we get, which tells us, okay, Odisha, these are the major issues, or maybe Bihar is having this sort of an issue, or Odisha, western part is having dearth of manpower. So whatever things come up, and those proactively, if you are able to take actions, I think that will help to reduce the turnover and increase the retention. So these
I think
are
the most again the things which is coming is one, obviously the data which is important. The other part is basically the human connect I think that is more important from the retention perspective also. In the interest of time, Sunny, I'll go with the questions which has come from the audience, and the first question I'll just put it across to you only. So how often do leaders in your organization provide feedback to employees on their performance? So I think very specific they mentioned to the organization. Maybe you can general from the HR fraternity you can answer rather than going for your organization in case you want. I'm okay.
So if I tell you if the people want increment, they do it once in a year. If they really want for their own development, they do it immediately. That's what is happening around. There are people who are sitting there waiting for the increments to happen, and then they decide on how much they're going to get. But there are people who are sitting outside making sure that they're basically concerned about their development. And hence they ask immediately. Now, for an organization like what I'm working with, or maybe a manufacturing sector, you cannot have something called as the way IT works, where you have immediate feedbacks given to a shop floor guy, giving it to the blue collar worker, or shop floor guy giving it to a supervisor, giving it to the shift in charge. But yes, if the person is wanting to develop himself, it's on immediate basis. If the person is waiting for his increment, he wants to know how much percent he's going to get. If it is the money that he is there as an intent, then you get it at once in a year for sure. But if someone is looking at development, it is on the real-time basis that one should give. And most of the organizations fall in between. I've seen a survey, and I've also done a little survey. We were looking at this design thinking methodology, using it in our company, where we thought of empathize with people, then create a problem, and then ideate, and then look at the prototype. We did that, and we came up with this problem that really, this is what the solution it came out. People who are interested will do it immediately. I do not have to wait for the year end to come and then I'll tell you, yeah, mera ye problem. And I wanted to do this, I couldn't do this, and I want my feedback. Now, with this young generation also, they come immediately to you and ask you, sir, how was it? How was my presentation? What should I do to improve on? What was good part of it?
They're not waiting for leaders to come and share feedback.
Yes.
They themselves for reaching out proactively. I think that's a very good point to mention. Yeah.
Agreed. But I've also seen people the other side, the otherwise also, who wait for the year. That is.
So I have another question. So issue this, I'll put across to you only. What are some effective strategies for managing underperforming employees?
You see, usually, all organizations have a different way to bucket the employees, year-end ratings, what we call, and some have a 5 scale. Okay, with 3 being the meets expectation, to 1 going needs improvement, and 5 being exceptional performance. Okay, now rating again is not something which remains permanent for life. It changes. You said meeting, how do you manage underperformance? Now, underperformance can be 2 things. 1, if I am a sales, it's pretty straight. I am missing on my numbers, targets month after month after month. Now that's definitely a first pointer. Okay, is there a gap in capability? Is there a gap in competency? Is person-centric? The second is the territory itself not able to support? These are beyond the, what I would say, the person. These are not person-centric. So have we been able to segregate between those reasons for poor performance, which you can attribute it to person, and a reason for poor performance, which you can attribute it to factors beyond the control of it? Have we done that objective analysis? And if we have done objective analysis, taken those course corrections, yes, why not? The other aspect is, let's say if it is attributed to person, both competency and capability, both. In that eventuality, do you have a PIP? Do you have a performance improvement program as to what exactly is the reason? Do I need some more training on products, some more training on applications, some more better understanding of my product's value proposition? Am I able to pitch my product properly? Am I able? So there could be many reasons. But in absence of these reasons, if we just go by end result of, again, I say, you didn't do well in last 2 years, doesn't mean that I am the reason for poor performance. But if you have found that, taken me through a process of performance improvement, then you can take actions at that point of time. But identifying reasons of poor performance becomes very important, because some are attributable to person, competency, capability, and some are the very market itself in which one person is. Maybe you don't have enough opportunities. Okay, so there's only that much of total available market you can actually serve. So these could be some of the reasons. The reason identification is very important, and I'm sure these are recorded in the end year performance appraisal. And the ratings they tell a story. You take 5 years performance rating, it tells you a story. And yeah, end of it, are you acting on that? Are you really acting on that? Maybe sometimes I'm rated a 5. It's basically because the other customer he had sudden demand and he had only one supplier, me. So it's not me who is the star. It's I'm at present at the right moment. But the need is driven by the customer. So which we call it as one-off. So reasons have to be identified, Sumit, to address this kind of an issue. And if you have identified person-centric, do you have a plan to address it? If it is market pretty itself, then you have very different interventions you need to make, move the person from that market completely, give it to an opportunity where it is there. So what reasons are identified and how the reasons are identified will help you take those actions.
Right. I think this individual plan has to be worked out, or like you mentioned, the competency of the thing. But I think the important thing is the other factors which are also impacting the performance that needs to be taken care. So thank you so much. So with this, we have come to the end of our session. So I'd like to thank you all for participating in our session on people analytics, transforming HR and employer performance management. And as we conclude this session, it is important to remember that people analytics is not a silver bullet, but rather a powerful tool that can help organizations optimize their workforce. It requires a thoughtful and strategic approach and a commitment to using data ethically and responsibly. We discussed on that part, I think, so I thought I'd reiterate that part. So thank you once again for joining us today and have a great time ahead. Thank you so much.